I would just like to remember some words of St. Francis of Assisi, which I think are really just particularly apt at the moment. Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is error, may we bring truth. Where there is doubt, may we bring faith. And where there is despair, may we bring hope.
And we've had this.
As we leave the European Union, we will forge a bold, new, positive role for ourselves in the world. And we will make Britain a country that works not for a privileged few, but for every one of us. That will be the mission of the government I lead. And together, we will build a better Britain.
But while the Tories have had 2 female leaders and 2 female prime ministers, the Labour Party never has, apart from the occasional acting leader in the form of Harriet Harman and Margaret Beckett. Well, today we're asking, does that mean the Labour Party has a gender problem? To discuss that, joined by Sonia Sodha of The Observer and a former member of Ed Miliband's team, Ivana Bartoletti of the Fabian Women's Network, and the Labour MEP Mary Honeyball. And of course we've still got, it's not just the leader, it's the deputy leader, a lot of the key jobs. Do you think there is a problem, Sonia?
I do think there is a problem. I think it manifests itself in a couple of ways. So I think the first thing to say is that actually if you look at the number of women in Parliament, Labour's still not doing good enough, but it is doing better than the Conservatives. But where it really starts to get tricky, I think, is when you look at the very senior leadership positions in the party. So women, it tends to be very difficult for them to get elected to the top job. So it's not just leader of the party. But if you look at the mayoral selections that have taken place, big jobs in London, Merseyside, Manchester, Bristol, it's all men who've been selected for those jobs. And then I think the problem also operates at a different level as well. So it's kind of a case of who's in the room when the key strategic decisions are being made at the top of the party. And I think quite often in the last few years, when you look at the party, that conversation tends to be extremely male-dominated. And I think that is problematic. I think it's a cultural problem in Labour. I don't think that men who work for the Labour Party get up every morning and think, right, how are we going to cement in the glass ceiling this morning? I think it's subconscious, and I think it's a case of people not looking around the room and saying, well, hang on a sec, why does it seem to be all white men in the room here when we're taking a big decision about something?
Mary, do you agree?
I totally agree with that. The real problem is that we're just not keeping up. As you said, the Conservatives have managed 2 prime ministers. There are women leaders in other parties in Scotland and in Wales, and we just haven't managed to do it at national level. I would say, though, in the European Parliament, we're rather better. We have a woman leader and we have a majority of women MPs, but that doesn't solve the problem. I think it's perhaps a bit more than cultural. I mean, this goes back many, many years. I mean, I've been involved for a very long time now, and it is better than it was when I first joined the Labour Party, but in relation to other parties, it really hasn't changed. And that's our problem. And we talk about being the party of equality, but we don't really do it in practice.
Do you accept there is this problem? What do you think the reasons are?
Surely there is. I mean, I've been in politics in the UK and internationally for a long time, and I feel that there is a problem. There is a problem with female representation, but not just in politics, not just in the Labour Party. I mean, the Fabian Women's Network, we campaign for women equality across the board. If you look at businesses, if you look at company boards, I mean, there is a problem with
But is the Labour Party in politics actually doing, worse than the Conservatives, for example?
Well, the problem is that we are in a difficult moment, I think, in the Labour Party for women, and I think we really need to get our act together on this and make sure that we have more women at every level. We've done really well for women over the years, though. If I look at legislation promoting women, the Labour Party has been at the forefront for decades, and surely many policies put forward by a female Prime Minister, Theresa May, I wouldn't define them as feminist policies, because when austerity is so hitting women so hard, then surely I don't think Conservative policies are friends of women, women-friendly. So the main issue that we have at the moment, I think, is make sure that we have more women at every level of the Labour Party, make sure that women get together and really fight to get up to the top.
And Mary, do you think that, in a sense, within Labour, it's getting worse with the drift of the party? I mean, it just struck me that, if you go over the road to the Momentum event, it's not very diverse.
Well, of course, Momentum is not the Labour Party. No, I think it has got worse with the current leadership. when Jeremy Corbyn was first elected, somehow or other he forgot to have women in the three of what are regarded as the three shadow great
rather
offices.
Embarrassingly
it was
overheard,
embarrassing, and that had to be pointed out to him, and I think that says a lot. This current leadership of the Labour Party just doesn't take women and women's issues and women in the party seriously, and that is a change from Labour in the past, and we've lost that idea that we need to be a progressive force fighting for equality, and that's tragic.
I do think that's fair, and I actually think looking back, particularly if you look at the sort of staffing side of this, which is it's a different question to the sort of representative question, who's elected, but it's also really important because it's about who's making the decisions. And if you look back, actually, there have been times in the Labour Party's past. So, for example, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, we're actually number 10. There were lots of very senior women who worked for him. There were women across the country in very senior positions in the party. There were lots of regional director positions that were taken by women. So I think, I think there have been periods where Labour has been a bit better at this. So I certainly think it's fair to say that it's a problem that's not necessarily getting better. I also think that that below the radar, some of this also happens at the local level. So there was a very interesting BBC investigation earlier this year into some of the problems that Muslim women who want to get involved in the Labour Party have faced. And they found it very, very difficult because Asian men involved in the Labour Party in some areas have tended to have very sexist views about whether women can get involved in politics. Now, for me, I think that's really
Has to be said, though, there are
concerning.
quite a lot of Asian women Labour MPs.
There are some Asian women Labour MPs, which is fantastic, but very worrying that Newsnight was able to go out and find quite a few Muslim women who, at the local level, are finding it very hard to get involved.
Okay, what should the Labour Party collectively do to address this problem?
Well, there are things that need to be addressed. There are things that need to be addressed in relation to the tone that is often used by Labour Party members, particularly towards women. And we have to be very, very vigilant at every level to make sure that there's a more friendly environment for everybody, whether it's women or whether it's people from every walk of life, to join the Labour Party. And then it's very important that we respect quota. It's very important that we together make sure that there are all women shortlists and women get selected for seats. And it's also very important that we achieve that cultural change that we need in the Labour Party. There's one last thing I'd like to say, which is the Labour Party has always been at the forefront for women's rights, and it has to continue to do so, because the link between the feminist movement and the Labour Party has always been what has allowed Labour to change society.
Mary, what would you like to see?
I'm a great believer in quotas. I've campaigned in the European Parliament for quotas in various aspects of life. We did achieve all women shortlists. Sadly, what that's meant is that women only get selected in all women shortlists. They don't get selected in open shortlists. That's been a real problem this round of selections. I think we should impose quotas on all positions in the party and enforce them, because the women are there. We have good women in the party, good women who want to join, good women who could do these jobs. We've got to make sure that they get them.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about Tony Blair, and of course he once bestrode the Labour Party like a colossus, but Tony Blair is of course the most successful Labour leader in history in electoral terms.